Welcome back to the Wizard Shop. Today is kind of an update kind of day. We've been slaving away in the shop and getting some stuff done. I'm going to give you guys an update on Tyler's Bentley Turbo R, what we've done to it so far, some of the common issues that we've found with it. Also, I promised you guys an update on the Lotus and exactly what happened to it, and we have that information now. So without further ado, let's get started. So this is Tyler's 1990 Bentley Turbo R, and it's in the shop for quite a list of things to get done. We're going to do both distribution valves on the brakes, rebuilding both brake pumps, rebuilding the steering rack, and all of his windows. So far we've got the back windows done, I've got the brake pumps done, and we're going back together stuff that we had to remove to get down to the front one. So with what we've done so far, the common question will be, why? What commonly fails on these? I'm going to show you guys some of the pieces and parts that I've taken off and explain what went wrong on this. The power brakes on this vehicle are not like your typical Toyota or Chevy with vacuum brakes. It actually has two little hydraulic pumps that run off the camshaft, a front one and a rear one on the engine. And they sit there and just pump up brake pressure, and that is your power brakes. That's how it works. The leak he was having, it was leaking all down the side of the engine and onto the ground, just big puddles. It wasn't internally leaking in the pumps. There's a little shell that goes over the pump itself that acts as the supply well to supply new fluid to the pumps. All it is two O-rings, guys. You take the shell off, there's the two O-rings. I went ahead and used the special tool that I have to take the actual brake pumps out. It's got little teeth. You just unscrew the brake pump, and there's little push rods down in there. I'll show you guys here in a minute exactly where they're at, but they're hard to see. They're really kind of buried in there. There's a couple of little push rods that push on the brake pumps. I went ahead and replaced those just for good measure. And we put the new O-rings on. That'll solve his leak. That's really all that was wrong, was the little O-rings, but I went ahead and took them off and went through them and checked them out. This is one of those instances where the special tool is the only way. There are all kinds of special tools out there on cars where you could probably just find a different way to do it. But on this is the only way. It has these little serrated teeth that fit into a serrated collar. And it's so buried down inside the engine, you wouldn't be able to get any other tool down in there. This is the only way. And I'll show you guys here. Let's take a look. Straight below my flashlight is the brake pump, the rear one. And as you can see, this big pipe goes into an aluminum shell. There's a little circlip that I'm touching with my screwdriver right now. As you can see, there's a little spring clip right there, snap ring clip. You take that off, and this aluminum jacket or shell just slides straight up. That was his leak, was the O-rings inside of there. Once you get that off, and these two lines off, you use the special tool I just showed you, break the whole thing loose. It spins and comes straight up out of here. There's also one right here, but it's very difficult to get to or see. Follow the pipe right here. That's the front one. The O-rings had just gotten hard over the years with age, and it was the supply oil that comes from this reservoir right here would just ooze and leak all the way down his engine block. But not anymore. Those are taken care of. We've got new O-rings and rebuilt, and everything's happy there.
Hey, Car Wizard, let's check out the windows.
Yep, the rear windows, when he first got this car, if you tried to do the windows in the back, it would just go click, 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 make noises, and nothing happened. So now that I've taken the door panels off and pulled all the components out and rebuilt it, which I'm going to show you guys, the rear windows work. So there you have it. Both windows work in the back. I will also do the front ones, but not at this time because I don't want to open the doors and hit them on the post. Now is not the time to do those. But let's go back over to my cart and I'll show you what pieces I replaced in the windows. One of the things in the power windows is there's a motor, then there's a gearbox, and the gearbox transfers power from the motor to a chain. And the chain actually moves the windows up and down. In between the motor and the gearbox is a little plastic coupling, just like this one. It's got little slots on either end. One end the motor fits into, and the other end the gearbox shaft goes into. It's just a coupling in between the two. When I took Hoovies apart, this is what we had inside the motor. Trash. No good. Now we replaced these. We lubed up the motor bearings and everything, the shaft bearings. We also went ahead and replaced the inside the gearbox is a little plastic gear. The little spiral worm gear that drives this is metal, but this is not metal, it's plastic. And what commonly happens is under any kind of a load, these little teeth get brittle and they just break off. And then it just sits there and spins. If I had it all the way apart, I went ahead and replaced these anyway. The other ones were starting to get kind of caved in on the teeth, and I could tell it wouldn't be much longer. So we got those replaced. We got the coupling replaced, lubed up the windows, the tracks, the chain, everything, the gears, and it worked great. And I would have shown you guys some of the stuff, but it's just really, it's inside of, like looking inside of a cave. You can't really see inside of it. If you check Hoovie's video on this, it shows me taking the door panels off. But I've gotten the backs done and moving on some other things. But that's where we're at on this. I'm getting ready to raise it up tomorrow, and we're going to take the steering rack off and the distribution valves and move ahead on that. I'm going to rebuild the steering rack myself, a new one. The horror stories I've read is that you can go through 3 or 4 rebuilt ones to get a good one. I can take that chance. So anyways, that's where we're at on the Bentley. Let's go take a look at the Lotus. We've got some information for you guys on that. Well, I've got the cylinder head off of this 95 Lotus Esprit Turbo S4S. I finally got around to it. The understanding with the customer is when I get time, I'll work on it, and I take care of the day-to-day cars first, and he's cool with that. In return, I'll save him a little money. It came in with a blown head gasket. That's what we think it is. That's what we thought it was, and it turned out that that was the case. He was having coolant coming out of his exhaust pipe. It was blowing perfect white smoke rings, and it didn't overheat. Luckily, he didn't run it that hard or that long. He just turned it off and had a tow truck come and get it. You can check the previous video we did on this. There's a link to all that. We'll put a link below. So as we got the cylinder head off, we can see that these 3 cylinders have normal carbon on them, but this one's clean. This is the back cylinder, number 4. The valves are shiny. All the carbon is basically been steam cleaned. That's what happened here. Where the head gasket blew happened in this cylinder. And we're going to show you guys here in a minute the actual head gasket. In the previous video, you guys will see, if you click that link, we got a borescope camera. We looked down in the spark plug holes, which are right here. The camera came through here and we looked around. And we saw that this was the cylinder that had coolant in it. And it makes sense because it's steam cleaned in there. And we thought, well, it's probably a blown head gasket. And now we know that's the case. Let me show you guys what I found on the actual head gaskets itself on the block. So the head's off. Now we can take a look and take a peek exactly what happened. This right here, this circle around the cylinder, is called the fire ring. There's one around each cylinder. This were actually seals. And as you can see, these others are perfectly round, nice and circular. But when we come to the back one and we go around and uh-oh. Look at that, guys. Look how forceful it was pushed out. It crumpled the whole head gasket. In one of my previous videos where we talk about head gaskets, we'll have a link to that as well. It shows on a Toyota, on Tyler's old Prius engine, what a head gasket is and what it does. And you can see that combustion gases were going past the fire ring and straight into the coolant right here. There's coolant. So we see that it physically pushed really hard right here. Let me take this gasket off and you can see what's underneath of it. So we can see where it failed, which is right around in here. So it was pushing exhaust gas straight into the coolant, right into the cooling system, which is the green right here. So as you can see, if I put the head gasket against the head itself, it matches right here. There's an actual imprint on the cylinder right here on the head surface. Look at this, guys. It's pooched out really hard, really far, I should say. That doesn't just happen from your common head gasket where corrosion got in there and maybe it just kind of weakened it and a little coolant gets in or combustion gases get out, vice versa. This is forceful. This is like a punch in the face. This is like, boom, it popped it hard. My estimation is that this is overboost. This is too much boost. And it physically pushed the firing out. You can see the crumpling here. There's a lot of people who have been on different forums and things. The owner of this car said, oh no, it's this or that, but this is just pretty evident. From experience, I know this is overboost. I asked the customer, and I was like, so you told me that you just had this tuned somewhere, and I'm not going to get into finger pointing or anything like that, but it was tuned, and then the head gasket blew. So I asked him, well, how much boost are you running? And his answer was, I don't know. I said, well, don't you have a gauge, or don't you have a... No. And we have this happening. So how much boost? It could be 25, 30, who knows how much it was. I know that I'm not going to repair this job and put it back together, and we don't know what it's doing for boosts. So part of the agreement is I will fix this for him. We're also going to install a boost controller and a boost gauge on his dash. So if this starts to get really high again, we can know that is probably where our issue lies. We need to address that and not drive the vehicle anymore till we figure that out. Really, on a Lotus, this being a Lotus, you really should be able to monitor all those things when you're... It does have like a boost gauge, a tiny little bitty one that just goes like 0, 1 bar, or whatever, one. It doesn't tell you a whole lot more information than that. So we need something that shows 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35 PSI. And that'll give us an idea of exactly what's going on. Again, my estimation, overboost, blew the head gasket, because he had no issues with this car before. If we take the head gasket off, set it aside, you can see where the ring used to be, and then where it ended up. It pushed it that far. That's like 1/4 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch. That's a lot of head gasket movement all at one time, really fast. So, like I said, I'm going to go through the feeler gauge in a straight edge and make sure that this isn't warped. And I don't think that it is, because he didn't overheat it. If this is all good, we're going to put new head studs and new head gasket, upgraded head gasket. We're going to go ahead and do the timing belt service and everything while we're at it, and get this car back together and get it back on the road for him. But I wanted to show you guys what I found. When I took the cylinder head off and I saw where the head gasket was damaged, I was like, wow, it's got to be overboost. So that's what I found. I thought I would share it with you guys, and you guys can, in the comments, talk about what you think about the whole situation. And this is what we run up against when you run a shop. This happened, and I don't know why. Can you find out why? Well, I found out why. So now we know where to go, which direction to go. It kind of stinks that it blew the head gasket, but being that he's an experienced driver, he knew and he stopped. He turned it off right away. I'm glad that's all it was, and I'm glad it happened. Let me tell you guys why I'm glad this happened. When I got the timing belt off and I pulled the tensioner off, listen to this thing. You hear that, guys? His timing belt tensioner wasn't too far away from seizing up solid, and that would have just wrecked these valves. So it actually kind of is a blessing in disguise. Isn't that kind of strange how that happens sometimes? I'm so glad we caught this. So it stinks, it's expensive, but it sure isn't as expensive if we bent all these valves and if a valve were to break off, it would have really been a big mess. Well, I thought I'd give you guys a little update on Tyler's Bentley. We're doing pretty good on it, and I know you guys definitely wanted to hear about what did I find on the Lotus. I found, obviously, like I just showed you, I found more than a blown head gasket. I found a potential serious problem with the tensioner. So any of the tools that I use, or if you want to know what kind of tools I use, check my Amazon affiliates page in the link below. There's all the tools I use for sale there. Except for the special tool on the Bentley. That's a Rolls-Royce and Bentley brake pump tool. What else are you going to use that on? I'm not going to put that on my affiliates page. Check out our merch. There's stuff for sale there too. Got many more cool videos to come, and it'll be interesting to get this thing back up on the road and check out what that boost was. So again, thanks for watching, and catch you guys next time.